Hello and welcome back. Day 2 for our Sustainable Standing Poses series. And we're going to take some of the principles that we worked on in chair pose yesterday, where we were trying to use chair pose as one that's going to create more strength and stability in your backside and your posterior chain. And we're going to use that strength and stability that we created in chair and move it into Uttanasana, into our standing forward bend. Because as you all know watching this, as we know, if you're going to do yoga, you're likely going to be doing a forward bend or two, if not 800. And over the course of your yoga career, there's a lot of forward bending. And traditionally, and I want to say, and I just want to make a clarification, when I say traditionally, that's going to be my blanket term to say the most common cues, what we hear. So I just want to make that clear. So I'm going to say traditionally, what we most... Common alignment too. Yeah, common alignment cues. I'm just going to kind of blanket that all together. You know, usually that forward bend, so let's take our more tight people. So I'll pretend to be, you know, our person with really tight hamstrings, tight lower back. Their forward bend will be, you know, let's say we're coming into a sun salutation or something, and their forward bend is going to be something like that, where it's just a big round arc. Could I be? Okay, thank you. So like that, oh yeah. And then coming back up. And then we have our more mobile people, and Tori's one of them, and she's a perfect person for this tutorial because she actually has overstretched her hamstrings. Did you tear it a little bit?
Yeah, the attachments.
Yay! So she tore the attachments, which sadly is a common yoga pose injury, or a common place for yogis to get injured are the attachment points of the hamstrings. Your hamstrings are attached to your sit bones, the upper attachment. And a lot of, I'm going to call it a lot of enthusiastic forward bends where we can come up and down, and we're really relying on gravity to bring you down. There's not necessarily a ton of strength and stability in the legs when we do all of that up and down, on top of other movements that would make that hamstring become unstable. So this is why this is such an important tutorial. This one's my most excited one, is the Uttanasana. So here we go. Yeah, let's face the window. And so Tori is going to, and I'm not even going to get her to do a traditional one because I think if you're watching this, you probably know, right? I'll do it here. So, and then down, right? So this really enthusiastic, and I'm making it dramatic, but enthusiastic, like swan dive down. And so we as human beings, and we as Western people, and we as yogis really need a strong posterior chain. It's your anchor, it's your support. Your glutes are what propel you through life, what propel you when you walk. The hamstrings, the calves, everything that your backside. I like to think about it as a place of stability and strength and support, especially when we're trying to move the pelvis. Because your pelvis is like this hinge for your spine when we come down into a forward bend. But when you're hinging, it's important to have anchor. So this is the way that I like to think about it. The backside, your posterior chain is your anchor. So hands on. So this is how we're going to sustainabilize this forward bend. So let your hips shift back. So as we talked about a little bit, remember, so can we just revisit real quick, let the pelvis shift forward. And I'm going to press down. It's so light, I don't even want to press more. There's very little strength and stability here. So let's build it from the structure. Align the bones. Bring your pelvis back over the heels. And then let her get stable. That's already better. Bring her ribs in slightly. Good. And then, oh, she's rock solid. Beautiful. Now, bring your attention into your pelvis and think about your pelvis like a hinge. And she's going to, so now we're going to just do a forward bend, and then we're going to break the component parts down a little bit more. So I'm just going to have her just start to think about her pelvis like a hinge. And I don't even want her to go as far as what feels good before, you start to feel your hamstrings maybe get to that point. Yeah, that's a good. And then so while you're watching this, see if you can watch her pelvis. If you can put on your X-ray vision and try to see the bones of her pelvis tilting over the femur bones, tilting over her thigh bones as she comes up. Yeah, so we're just gonna come up. So this is the hinging action that we want to get in a forward bend for people. I could actually probably spend an hour teaching about this. So I'm going to kind of break it down to what I feel to be the most important parts, because we don't have an hour for this. We're going to keep this, I want to keep these in a nice streamlined format. So hip hinge first, very important. But now let's go back to our chair pose again for a second. So now because this is important, because you want to turn your brain, for yourself or your students, your brain to wake up in the butt, right? So basically turning your butt on, your glutes, the posterior chain. So just that little bend. And then remember, if you've got a hypermobile lower back, you do that slight tuck. If you're not hypermobile, you will not tuck, because you're probably already tucking. You feel everything nice and strong. Feel that awake? Okay, so now take your hands onto your thighs, just on the front of your thighs, and see if you can bend a little bit more in your knees and send the hips a little bit more back. So start to load more weight. Good. Okay, so now she's going to take one hand to her lower back, and then the height that her pelvis is right now, we're going to leave it there and just try to move your knees back behind you. So this hopefully will make sense to you at home. This is a kind of a tricky cue. We're not letting the pelvis lift up. Your pelvis will want to lift up when your knees try to travel behind you, but maintain that gentle pressing down of the pelvis and moving the thighs back. And if you're doing it correctly, what are you going to feel? Shaking. She's shaking, because her hamstrings need to they're probably already strong, but they need to get even more stronger. So that's where that shaking comes in. And everything, is this okay that I'm just feeling her out? Everything back here is going to wake up. Whew. So memorize that feeling. Get that locked into your mind, that motor program, that neural program here. Boom, it's in your brain. Come back up to standing. Okay, shake it out. And then we're going to revisit that. So now that it's in her brain, now that she's connected what it feels like to have a strong working backside, we're going to integrate that into Uttanasana. So shift your hips back, hands onto your pelvis, and I really try to encourage people to actually feel and find the bones of their pelvis. So feel them, and then you find your ASISs, those two hip points, and they're going to start to tilt down. And so for the first couple tries, her knees are a little bit bent, and that's okay, because that's going to continue the work of just waking up her brain into her backside. So that's her forward bend, and this is a really good place for a lot of people, especially if you're just teaching or doing just a straight forward bend. Okay? Now, how does that feel in your experience now? A little bit different? How does it feel in your attachment points?
Fine. Work here, nothing here.
Boom. So for somebody like Tori, who could do some more dramatic, fancy, traditional yoga pose, she doesn't need to do it. What she wants to work on and needs to work on is something as simple as this. So this is what we're talking about with a sustainable approach to yoga. Why are we doing what we're doing? What are the shapes that we're trying to create? My question to everybody, and my students especially, is why? Why are we doing this? So for her, for most everybody, we need that strength in the backside. So you can use your forward bend as an opportunity to get that strength. Now let's come up. So I like to think about my hamstrings like little pulleys on the sit bone. So those pulleys are contracting to bring her up. Yes, so good. But now you're probably wondering, well, I'm nowhere near the floor. How do I turn this into a sun salutation, let's say? If you're going to choose to make this into a sun salutation, this is how I would teach this for people in a class setting. So I'm pausing because I would actually prefer to take the hands onto the pelvis, just because people still need to put that into their brains. What does it feel like to move their pelvis? So you can decide. If you're a teacher, you can decide hands on pelvis, hands up. Let's just for fun bring the arms up. Now Tori is going to still move. Now that we've set this all up, her brain is here. She understands the movement now. She's going to bring that into a forward bend until she can't move anymore. So until her pelvis cannot hinge anymore. pause. So I'm going to say that that's about good for her. And then you can so she's let her pelvis go as far as the hamstrings are happy. Now she can let her spine come the rest of the way down. And this is okay too. This full flexion of the spine is nice as well, especially when you first moved the pelvis. When the pelvis went as far as it will go, the rest of the spine will come up or come down. Now she's going to come back up. So pretend she just went through a sun salutation. She's going to come back up. Anchor her feet into the floor. Feel the back side kick on. And if you like to think about the hamstrings like little pulleys, pulling your sit bones down. Yeah. So she has to go slow because she's still connecting this into her brain. There we go. So there's Uttanasana. I feel, and like I said, we could spend a lot longer time, but I feel like those are the main points. Wake up the posterior chain so that it's strong, supportive for the movement of your pelvis, and then the movement of your spine. Because if your pelvis and spine is always kind of going into this flexion position, that's where that wear and tear in the lumbar spine can happen, or some really fun hamstring injuries. So I hope that helps. Get ready for tomorrow. It's going to be another great little lesson. Enjoy this.